The Iran-Iraq War, a brutal conflict that raged from 1980 to 1988, stands as one of the longest and deadliest conventional wars of the 20th century. Over 8 grueling years, two neighboring nations clashed in a devastating struggle for regional supremacy, ideological dominance, and control over vital territory. The war would ultimately claim over 1 million lives, reshape the political landscape of the Middle East, and leave deep, lasting scars on the collective memory of both Iran and Iraq. What were the sparks that ignited this catastrophic conflict, and what lessons can we draw from its tragic history? Let's explore the story of a war that defined a generation and whose echoes still reverberate across the world today. The seeds of the Iran-Iraq War were sown long before the first shots were fired. At its heart were deep-seated historical tensions, ideological rivalries, and strategic ambitions. In Iraq, President Saddam Hussein and his Ba'athist regime watched with growing alarm as Iran's 1979 Islamic Revolution unfolded. Led by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, the revolution espoused a powerful Shia Islamic ideology that threatened to inspire similar movements among Iraq's own majority Shia population, directly challenging Saddam's secular Sunni-led government. Beyond ideology, there were long-standing territorial disputes. The most critical of these was the Shatt al-Arab waterway, a vital river confluence that forms the border between the two countries and provides Iraq with its only major outlet to the Persian Gulf. Control over this waterway was a constant source of friction. Added to this was the prize of Khuzestan, an oil-rich province in Iran with a significant Arab population, which Saddam hoped to annex, believing it would cripple Iran's economy and bolster Iraq's position as the dominant regional power. Believing Iran was weakened and isolated after its revolution, Saddam saw an opportunity to strike and achieve a swift, decisive victory. On September 22, 1980, that calculation was put to the test. Iraq launched a massive, multi-pronged invasion of Iran, with ground forces pouring across the border and its air force striking key targets, including Tehran's international airport. The initial Iraqi advance was rapid, catching Iran's post-revolutionary military in a state of disarray. Iraqi forces quickly captured several towns and laid siege to major cities like Khorramshahr and Abadan in the crucial Khuzestan province. Saddam expected the Iranian government to crumble under the pressure and for the local Arab population to rise up in support of his forces. But he had fundamentally misjudged the Iranian response. Instead of collapsing, the invasion galvanized the Iranian people. Ayatollah Khomeini delivered powerful speeches, framing the conflict as a holy defense of their nation and their revolution. A wave of patriotic and religious fervor swept the country. Hundreds of thousands of volunteers, many of them young and poorly equipped, rushed to the front lines to push back the invaders. The anticipated quick victory for Iraq dissolved into a brutal, drawn-out fight for every inch of territory. The battle for Khorramshahr, which became known as Khorramshahr, or the City of Blood, became a symbol of Iran's fierce and costly resistance. What was meant to be a swift campaign had now become a bloody war of attrition. As the war ground on, the front lines solidified into a hellish landscape of trenches, barbed wire, and artillery bombardments, grimly reminiscent of World War I. Both sides dug in, launching massive human wave assaults against heavily fortified positions, resulting in staggering casualties. The conflict became a meat grinder, consuming the lives of a generation of young men. It was during this phase that the war took one of its darkest turns. Facing Iran's numerical superiority, the Iraqi regime began to systematically deploy chemical weapons, including mustard gas and nerve agents like sarin and taboon. These horrific attacks were used against both Iranian soldiers in the trenches and, tragically, against civilian populations. The most infamous instance was the chemical bombing of the Iraqi Kurdish town of Halabja in 1988, which killed thousands of its own citizens. The use of chemical weapons was a flagrant violation of international law. Yet the global response was muted, a chilling silence that emboldened Saddam's regime. For the soldiers on the front lines, the fear of an invisible, agonizing death from gas attacks became a constant, terrifying reality, adding another layer of horror to an already brutal war. Throughout the 8 years of conflict, several key battles defined the shifting tides of the war, though none delivered a final, decisive blow. After halting the initial Iraqi invasion, Iran launched a series of major counteroffensives, most notably Operation Jerusalem in 1982, which successfully recaptured the city of Khorramshahr. This victory was a massive morale boost for Iran and marked a turning point, as Iranian forces then pushed the fight into Iraqi territory. Iran's primary objective became the capture of Basra, Iraq's second-largest city, a move that would have crippled Iraq. However, a series of massive battles around Basra resulted in some of the war's heaviest casualties, with the Iranian forces unable to break through Iraq's formidable defenses. Another critical battleground was the Faw Peninsula, which Iran captured in a surprise attack in 1986, threatening to cut Iraq off from the sea. Iraq eventually retook the peninsula in 1988 with overwhelming force. These battles were characterized by immense human cost, with both sides throwing wave after wave of soldiers into the fray for limited strategic gains, cementing the war's status as a brutal stalemate. The Iran-Iraq War did not happen in a vacuum. It quickly became entangled in the complex geopolitics of the Cold War and regional rivalries. While officially neutral, many world powers took sides. The Soviet Union, initially a major arms supplier to Iraq, also made overtures to Iran. More significantly, the United States, fearing the spread of Iran's Islamic Revolution and its potential to disrupt oil supplies, tilted its support towards Iraq. This support included providing intelligence, economic aid, and agricultural credits that freed up Iraqi funds for military spending. Several Western and Arab nations also backed Iraq, viewing it as a bulwark against Iranian expansionism. Kuwait and Saudi Arabia provided Saddam's regime with billions of dollars in loans. This international backing, whether direct or indirect, was crucial in sustaining Iraq's war effort, especially as its economy buckled under the strain. For its part, Iran was largely isolated, sourcing weapons through clandestine channels. This foreign involvement prolonged the conflict, turning the Persian Gulf into another proxy battlefield for global and regional powers. The true cost of the Iran-Iraq War is measured not in territory gained or lost, but in human lives. By the time the fighting ended, it's estimated that over 1 million people had been killed, with millions more wounded, maimed, or psychologically scarred. An entire generation in both countries was devastated. The economic toll was equally catastrophic. Both nations, once prosperous oil exporters, saw their economies shattered. Cities and critical infrastructure, including oil refineries and ports, lay in ruins. The cost of the war and subsequent rebuilding is estimated to be over $1 trillion. Beyond the numbers, the war left deep social wounds. Millions of people were displaced, becoming refugees in their own countries. Families were torn apart, and the trauma of the conflict lingered for decades, shaping national identity and politics. Memorials and cemeteries across both Iran and Iraq stand as solemn testaments to the immense human sacrifice. The scars of the war are not just visible in the rebuilt cities, but are etched into the very fabric of both societies. After 8 years of relentless bloodshed, and with both sides facing complete economic and military exhaustion, the futility of the conflict became undeniable. In July 1988, following a series of Iraqi military successes and facing mounting international pressure, Iran's leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, reluctantly agreed to accept a UN-brokered ceasefire, an act he famously compared to drinking a chalice of poison. On August 20, 1988, the guns finally fell silent. The war ended in a stalemate, with borders returning to their pre-war status. nothing had been gained. The Shatt al-Arab waterway, the initial pretext for the invasion, reverted to joint control as agreed upon years earlier. The aftermath was a period of immense challenge. Both nations had to demobilize millions of soldiers, care for a generation of veterans, and embark on the monumental task of rebuilding their devastated countries. The political consequences were also profound. In Iraq, Saddam Hussein claimed victory and emerged with a massive, battle-hardened army, which he would use just 2 years later to invade Kuwait, triggering the First Gulf War. The end of the Iran-Iraq War was not the end of conflict in the region, but merely the closing of one tragic chapter. So what lessons can we draw from this devastating 8-year conflict? The Iran-Iraq War serves as a stark and powerful reminder of the catastrophic human cost of political ambition and ideological rivalry. It highlights the dangers of miscalculation and the illusion of a swift victory, demonstrating how quickly conflicts can escalate into prolonged, unwinnable wars of attrition. It also underscores the tragic consequences when the international community fails to act decisively against the use of prohibited weapons and violations of human rights. But perhaps the most enduring lesson is one of resilience. In the face of immense destruction and loss, both the Iranian and Iraqi people have striven to rebuild their lives and their nations. The war is a testament to the fact that even after the darkest of times, the pursuit of peace, stability, and a better future is a powerful and enduring human endeavor. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video insightful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history. Let us know in the comments what historical event you'd like to see us cover next. See you in the next video.